at least in my perception, I was unsure. I wanted to go into medicine, but I also had a great interest in creative writing, so it was kind of a dynamic throughout my career here. I think the preparation that I had in biology and chemistry made my transition to medical school very easy. So from that perspective, it was a great educational experience. Somewhere when I was around 40 or so, I felt that there was really something missing in my life, something that was very important. And I took up the regular practice of poetry, creating poetry, as a kind of self-expression of my own experience as a physician. And so some people say there's a discrepancy or some kind of a gulf between these two professions, but I don't see it that way. I see my poetry as a way of expressing my experience and kind of synthesizing it. And I've brought that into my teaching, and so I've become quite an advocate for the humanities in medicine, and particularly creative writing in medicine. And I find it amazing and somewhat saddening that students who graduate with science degrees, at least those who come to these medical schools and who I experience, usually do not have any background in the humanities. They get their degree in, let's say, biochemistry without having to have any requirements, other than the very minimal requirements that medical schools set up. They usually require 2 semesters of English and maybe a couple semesters of language, but that's it. And they do it simply to get into medical school. Whereas those students who come from liberal arts universities or colleges, and believe it or not, we're getting a greater, well, it's certainly still a minority, but a higher percentage of liberal arts or humanities graduates who are coming to medical school. And I think that they do so much better in terms of working with their colleagues, so much better in terms of interacting with patients. And my particular area of teaching is in doctor-patient relationships, interactions, and medical ethics. And in those areas, these are students who really are outstanding. I realized that, I don't know why I write poetry other than the fact that I have to. And I have to express myself in that way. I write other things too, essays, stories, but the poetry seems to be essential. And I particularly feel it a kind of a mission to use poetry in teaching young doctors and medical students. And I often go to different hospitals, medical schools around the country, giving talks and even writing workshops with students. So it's kind of, for my own personal life, it's a necessity, and for my kind of continuing professional work, it's really more in that than in teaching other things.